Stavrovouni, according to legend, was founded by Helena, mother of the Emperor Constantine the Great. In the year 327, she survived a shipwreck on the coast of Larnaca. In a dream, she was bidden to establish a convent high above on the mountain and to make a gift to it of a fragment of the cross of Christ that she'd brought back from Jerusalem. Pascha, Easter, is the Orthodox Christians' most important festival. Baking begins on Maundy Thursday, and flaunis, a type of pastry filled with cheese, is a speciality on Cyprus. In Kelaki, the epitaphios, the tomb of Christ, is decorated with carnations. In other villages, girls pick wild spring flowers to deck out the grave. Noisily, the young people of the village toss Judas onto the crackling Easter bonfire. For Orthodox Christians, this is a way of ensuring that Judas is really dead and that he can't use trickery to avoid being resurrected in the face of the Lord. Deep in prayer, and even before the moment of resurrection, the faithful approach the tomb of Christ, cross themselves, respectfully bend the knee, and kiss the epitaphios. In the completely darkened church, the priest takes the light of the resurrection from the Holy of Holies and carries it to the congregation, using his candle to pass it to the person directly opposite him. Then the light of God spreads like wildfire. Christos Anesti, Christ is risen, and Alithos Anesti, truly he is risen, the members of the congregation call out to each other. With the coming of Easter Sunday, Lent is finally over. Now families can get together with their friends for the joyful Easter banquet, which is rather like the symposium of antiquity. Cyprus's most popular tourist spot is Ayia Napa, which boomed after the Turkish invasion of 1974, when it became a substitute for the now inaccessible beach hotels. Capo Greco, in the far southeast of the island, is a favorite destination for excursions from here. In the center of Ayia Napa is another oasis that has been carefully preserved from the old fishing village, the convent of the Holy Virgin of the Forest, which was built by the Venetians in 1540. Nowadays, it's open to the public as a museum. The Troodos Mountains are a treasure house filled with examples of Cyprus's cultural inheritance. Omodos is a village that is rich in both historic buildings and Cypriot handicrafts. The local women sell stylish embroidery and ceramics, and their honey, olive oil and candied fruits are also much in demand. And here, as everywhere, you come across Aphrodite. She has made the whole of Cyprus her own. Some excellent examples of Cyprus's traditional architecture can be seen in the museum village of Fikadu. Typically, the houses are built from solid blocks of stone without mortar, and courtyards and terraces are a common feature. Sophronia Theodorou represents the third generation of her family to be involved in making ceramics. Just as they did in ancient times, she uses a simple potter's wheel turned by a treadle. The shapes and bird motifs of her works are inspired by those of antiquity. No other topographical region within the orbit of the Orthodox Church can boast so many outstanding examples of Byzantine art as the Troodos Mountains. Panaia to Araka at Lago de Ra, with its frescoes dating from 1192, is one of UNESCO's World Cultural Heritage Sites. Within the zenith of the dome, Christ Pantocrator reigns in majesty over the cosmos, in a panoply of the church's sacred imagery. The overall composition is remarkably homogeneous in both form and content. There's a real sense of movement in the figure of the Archangel with his fluttering robes, hastening to Mary with the good tidings of the Annunciation. The important quality of these paintings is their warmth and humanity. Kalinikos, a monk from Stavrouni Monastery, paints icons in the traditional Cyprus manner. Every aspect of his work follows the pattern of Byzantine icons. Kiti, a little place on the outskirts of Larnaca, is the home of the finest single example of Byzantine mosaic work in the whole of the Orthodox Church. Situated in the apse and dating from the second half of the 6th century, it depicts the infant Jesus blessing the Virgin Mary. Right next to the salt lake at Larnaca stands Khala Sultan Teke, the mausoleum of Haram, the aunt or foster mother of Muhammad. It's one of the most holy places in the whole of Islam. Exploring Cyprus on foot and having a chance to take in both the coast of light and the mountainscape of Troodos from close quarters is one of those rare experiences that quietly touch the soul. Being close to the sea and surrounded by verdant countryside, Kourion Theatre, dating from the 2nd century and with seating for an audience of 3,500, seems blessed with an idyllic setting. Yet this impression only applies to people who visit it nowadays. In antiquity, the stage would have had high backdrops, hiding the view of the landscape and the azure sea. Although they're known as the royal tombs, there were never any kings buried here. These rock-hewn chambers for the dead are like the atriumed houses of the living. They were constructed in the Doric style with attention to the smallest detail. And who can guess how many laborers, most of them slaves, must have lost their lives in the quarrying process before they had finally chiseled out these resting places for well-to-do Greeks and Romans. The hermit Neophytos preferred to live in a cave while he was still alive. It was in a grotto that he wrote defiant pamphlets against the exploitation of Cyprus by foreigners. And while he still lived, his believers worshipped him as a saint. In 1183 and 1196, Neophytos had his church in the rock decorated by artists from Constantinople, in such a way that he could dwell in the presence of Christ, and also be carried up to heaven by angels in the manner of Christ himself. The watchtower of Colossae originates from a short intermezzo in the history of the Knights of the Order of St. John on their way back from Jerusalem. After the defeat at Akkon in 1291, the order moved to Cyprus for a period of 19 years, but the tower was only put up around 1454 on land still owned by the order, long after it had established its centre on Rhodes. In 1522, the order was driven out of there and moved to Malta, from which it is still operating throughout Europe as a Catholic branch of the Knights of Malta and a Protestant branch of the Order of St. John. Sun, sand and sky may be replaceable. The island Republic of Cyprus certainly isn't. It's incomparable. Where else can you look upon 10,000 years of history in the course of a short walk? Where else do you find Phoenician buildings and Roman mosaics, Greek temples and Gothic cathedrals on one and the same island? And where do you find British reticence combined with Mediterranean hospitality and Oriental charm? Only on Cyprus.